History is full of disastrous rulers. This list could have easily been filled with Roman emperors alone. Throughout history, there have been murderous rulers, like Nero, someone completely untrustworthy, like Charles I of England, or simply incompetent, like Louis XVI of France and Tsar Nicholas II. However, we decided to narrow everything down and create this list with the 5 worst kings in history. As always, it is a personal list, and to which you can contribute other names in the comments to this video. So let's check the list. There are many candidates for the worst Roman emperor, Nero and Commodus, for example, but Caligula's insane reign set a bar for unprecedented cruelty. After a promising start to his reign, things changed completely, and the emperor decided to turn the life of the Senate and the army into absolute hell and humiliation. Moreover, he declared himself a god in Jerusalem, something even absurd for the Romans, since they only recognized deification after death. Like his predecessor Tiberius, Caligula instituted a reign of terror through arbitrary arrest for treason. It was also rumored that he was involved with an incestual relationship with his sisters and lived a life of sexual debauchery, which may very well have been true. The story about how he turned his horse into a consul may have been exaggerated, but when it comes to Caligula, anything is possible. Caligula's unforgivable mistake was to jeopardize Rome's military reputation by declaring a kind of surreal war at sea, ordering his soldiers to go in and battle the waves with their swords, and collecting chests full of shells as spoils of his victory over the god of Neptune, the king of the sea. And also his failed campaign in the region where Germany is located today, which still made him build an arch of triumph. He was assassinated by the Praetorian Guard in 41 AD. Claudius was the emperor who succeeded Caligula. He was better than his predecessor, but not by much. King John's reign reminds us that murder and treason can be forgiven in a monarch, but not incompetence. John was Henry II's youngest son and favorite, but he was not given any land. He was mocked by his noble peers, receiving the nickname John Lackland. He fruitlessly tried to seize power while his brother Richard the Lionheart was abroad on a crusade. When Richard returned, John was sent into exile. In his ascension, John had his nephew Arthur murdered, fearing that he might compete for the throne. To gain power, he started a disastrous war against King Philip Augustus of France, where he lost all of Normandy. This singular act of incompetence stripped the barons of an important part of their power base, further alienating them with his arbitrary financial demands. Exasperated, the nobles forced John Lackland to accept Magna Carta, a document that limited royal power. He accepted Magna Carta, but went back on his word and plunged the country into a whirlwind of wars and a French invasion. Some tyrants have been rehabilitated by history, but John remains synonymous with incompetence and mockery. Prince Ivan Vasilievich grew up in the dangerous court of Moscow. His life was often in danger due to the rivalry of the boyars, the famous Russian nobles. This caused him to have a lifelong hatred for the nobility and a ruthless cruelty. To give you an idea, at the age of 13, he had his dog kill a boyar. Ivan took over as a prince of Muscovy in 1533. In 1547, he was crowned Tsar, Emperor of all Russia, the first ruler with this title. After coming to power, he crushed the boyars, stealing their land to give it to his followers. He also condemned millions of Russians to a permanent state of serfdom. Ivan ruled over a vast area of Russia, patrolled by a police force with carte blanche to arrest and execute anyone they wanted. Distrusting the city of Novgorod, he had its inhabitants violently sacked and massacred. He participated in several disastrous and unsuccessful wars with Russia's neighbors. Ivan even beat his own pregnant daughter-in-law and killed her son in a fit of rage. In many ways, Ivan was a skilled ruler, but his cruelty, paranoia, and taste for blood gave him a place on this list. Some current historians are kinder to Rudolph than in the past, but whatever the criteria of analysis, he was a disastrous ruler. Although he was prone to long bouts of deep depression and melancholy, and spent most of his time immersing himself in alchemy and astrology, Rudolph was elected Holy Roman Emperor in 1576. A staunch Catholic, Rudolph destroyed the religious settlement that for the past 20 years had kept German Catholics and Protestants at peace with each other, and began a crusade to eradicate Protestantism from German cities and towns. When the Protestants formed a self-defense league, while the Hungarians revolted and the Turks began an offensive, Rudolph locked himself in Prague Castle and refused to speak to anyone. The Habsburgs eventually agreed to replace Rudolph with his brother Matthias, who restored religious peace in Germany and signed treaties with the Turks and Hungarians. But Rudolph did not give up and started a war against the Turks again. Rudolph reluctantly signed the Letter of Majesty, giving Protestants freedom to worship in Bohemia, but began a persecutory offensive. The Bohemians asked Matthias for help, and in 1611, Rudolph was forced to hand over power to his brother. He died a year later, having laid the groundwork for the disastrous 30 Years' War, which would separate Europe between Catholics and Protestants 6 years after his death. Leopold's place on this list is not related to his rule in Belgium, but to the crimes committed in the huge kingdom he won for himself in the Congo. He attained the territory by international agreement and named it the Congo Free State. It was not a Belgian colony, but the king's personal fiefdom. The Congo Free State was advertised to the world as a model of freedom and prosperity, dedicated to the eradication of slavery. Slowly, the world came to realize it was a slave state, where the Congolese were subjected to a terrifying government. While Leopold accumulated the wealth of Congo's huge reserves of copper, ivory, and rubber, the Congolese were forced to work. Wives and children were mutilated, with hands or feet cut off. Mutilation was also widely used as a punishment for workers who ran away or mined less than the stipulated quota. An investigation by British consular official Roger Casement revealed that the Belgian force publique considered the Congolese to be little more than animals, to be killed for mere sport. The king fought a legal battle in the high courts to prevent the details of his regime in the Congo from being made public. It took an international campaign to force him to surrender the Congo to the Belgian government. Leopold's name is forever associated with the Congolese reign of terror, where up to 10 million people were murdered. It was a period when there were no breaks to prevent mass murder, which alone justifies Leopold's inclusion on this list.